All right, we're back. Fourth Quarter Boyz Sports. It's me, the illustrious one, Professor Lake, in the building, man. I'm your host. Like, comment, share, subscribe, be a fourth quarter boy for life, hit the notification icon. And today we're going to talk about Ryan Poles, the general manager for the Chicago Bears. I want to talk to the Bear fans, though, who've lived through all of these different regime changes, coaches changes, and, we want to know the truth about the product that is the Chicago Bears. Over the years, we've been forced to accept narratives that paint a great picture about the franchise. Through this talk, I hope to gain some clarity. I want to highlight some reasons for why we find our favorite franchise, the Chicago Bears, at the bottom of the NFC North. So we're going to start off with, Ryan Poles in his first year, and then we're going to go to the second year, and then we're going to go to this year. But his first year, Ryan Poles gets hired. Immediately, he hires Matt Eberflus, and
no applause, huh? Come on. Get it working in here, right?
In my mind, I thought that was a red flag. I'm kind of wondering who is Matt Eberflus? Where does he come from? I started doing my research, and I'm just kind of looking for something special as to why Ryan Poles chose this guy.
Okay, this is a special moment. Obviously for Ryan and I.
And then when you listen to Matt Eberflus on his opening interview, and he has his hits principle, he kind of reminds me of a used car salesman.
And first of all, I'd like to recognize God for his wisdom and discernment, not only in this moment, in the process of this, but really through my entire career. I want to recognize that for sure. Thank you to George. I appreciate you, George, the McCaskey family, Ryan. You're awesome, man. I appreciate you.
And, Ryan Poles, on the other hand, he's introducing himself to the media, and he almost cries.
Clark Hunt and the entire Chiefs organization, Brett Veach.
And that right there let me know all I needed to know about the leaders of the Chicago Bears franchise football team. Your general manager's crying. He's realized his dream is becoming a general manager. He can't hold himself together in a press conference. And Matt Eberflus is cool, calm, and collected.
For being the head football coach and selecting me, to be the head football coach of the Bears. The search team was great. I've been through several interviews, over the last couple years, and this team was top notch. Organization, how they did it from A to Z.
Trying to sell a dream right beside him. Those things kind of stuck out to me with the hiring of Luke Getsy and Aaron Williams. Those were more of an afterthought. We didn't find out how bad those coordinators were until we were into the season. Red flag number 2, free agency. The first signing of the free agent period was Larry Ogunjobi. It became a debacle. Again, when you're looking at a general manager, you're looking for a guy that's done proper research. You're looking for a guy that knows what he's looking for when he's scouting players. You want a guy that's making good decisions. And, in my opinion, where the Bears were at, I'm thinking the first person they're going to sign is an offensive tackle, an offensive guard, a center, anywhere on that offensive line, and he chose not to do that. As it goes for the Larry Ogunjobi signing, the Bears had to back out of it because Larry Ogunjobi couldn't pass a physical. He later got signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers. In my opinion, is just not one of the most explosive players in the center of the defensive line. I'm looking for somebody, if you're going to make this your splash signing, it better be a splash player. And Ogunjobi's just like the guy that we did end up signing in free agency, Justin Jones. But we'll get to the rest of the free agent signings in 1 minute. Ryan Poles was prepared to sign a contract with Larry Ogunjobi for $40 million, $26 million guaranteed. Okay? Now, that alone is kind of an indictment on his judgment. But, people in the media kind of overlooked it and moved on and said, hey, give him a mulligan. We're not going to pay attention to the fact that this guy couldn't pass a physical, and those things happen in the NFL. But how often does it happen to the good teams? How often does it happen to championship winning teams? I challenge anybody in the comment section to go ahead and, let me know. Maybe I'm wrong, but in my image, that's something that I would have figured out before I had him in my building. Again, even before that, they have something called a restricted free agent tender. Usually, like when you have a player that you want to keep, but you don't want to pay him that much money, you don't want to overpay, you can hit him with the restricted free agent tender and, possibly, get something in return if a team out there to outbid you, right? So, I'm thinking that maybe you'll put that on a guy like Bilal Nichols, maybe a James Daniels, some guys that actually showed that they had some talent, some playing experience, not the type of guys you just want to walk out the door, but here's what he does. Jesper Horsted, Sam Mustipher, Lachavius Pig Simmons were hit with restricted free agent tags. I don't know. I don't understand. In my mind, I'm thinking, hey, these are guys that I could do without and let them go find them a contract on another team. Bilal Nichols, James Daniels, these are some guys I want to take another look at. If they're going to leave the Chicago Bears, we're going to get something in return. So this was another minute red flag. I myself chose to overlook it, but deep down in my heart and my mind, I knew that was a mistake. Now, you remember that year in free agency, we were looking at all the guys that could potentially be Chicago Bears. So during free agency in the year 2022, Ryan Poles decided to sign Dane Cruikshank, Justin Jones, Trevor Siemian, Byron Pringle, Equiminius St. Brown, Alquadine Muhammad, Patrick Scales, Nick Morrow, Lucas Patrick, Dakota Dozier, Kari Blasingame. Out of all of these guys, and we're in 2024, the only player still with the Chicago Bears as of this season, and they're not even with the Bears anymore, was Kari Blasingame. One person from the 2022 free agent signings. So yeah, this is supposedly the tank year. I'm thinking Ryan Poles is giving some guys some opportunities to make things happen and possibly hang on for the Bears for a little bit longer than 1 season, 2 seasons. But it showed me a lot about, his chops for free agency. There were guys out there, I'm not going to go through that long list of players, but he missed out on some offensive linemen. He missed out on some defensive linemen. And that was one of the most unproductive, sad years for the Chicago Bears. Getting away from free agency and just taking a look at that picture of some of the guys we just mentioned, it just seemed unproductive. It didn't seem like it helped the team at all, not even for the near future. It just kind of got them through a season. It was a wasted year. That was a wasted year, wasted season. But when you move on out of free agency into the draft, you start looking at opportunities to draft linemen, draft offensive pieces that'll help Justin Fields out. And, no slight to Kyler Gordon or Jaquan Brisker, but we had 12 draft picks that season. 12. So I'm going to just run down the names of the draft picks for 2022. So Kyler Gordon, Jaquan Brisker, those are good draft picks. I'm not going to lie to you, Now, did we need to draft 2 defensive backs back-to-back? No. I will never agree with that. Not when George Pickens is on the board, not when Alec Pierce is on the board, not when Jalen Naylor is on the board, not when Rasheed Walker was on the board. So when you look at these things and you say, okay, it was a great draft pick, you don't get a pat on your back for drafting Jaquan Brisker and Kyler Gordon when you leave guys like this on the board and you really needed some offensive line help. You really needed some wide receiver help. I mean, hell, Equiminius St. Brown was a routine player that year for the Chicago Bears. Byron Pringle was a routine player for the Chicago Bears. And I'm not sure if either one of these guys are still in the league. But let's just run down these draft picks for 2022. All right, you got Kyler Gordon, Jaquan Brisker. Then we got the most hated Velus Jones. Now, mind you, Jalen Naylor is still out there. There's guys that are balling for teams that are in the top 10 right now that we overlooked for Velus Jones, Braxton Jones. Got him out the 5th round. That's how we're addressing our offensive line in the 5th round. We draft the 5th round offensive tackle out of Southern Utah State, Dominique Robinson. That's how you address the trenches with Dominique Robinson, a wide receiver converted to a defensive end. I mean, how ridiculous can you get? Even later on in the draft, we try to address the offensive line by getting a project pick in Zach Thomas. You get Treston Ebner somewhere in there. Doug Kramer, he's still with the team. Jatiri Carter. I mean, what are we doing here? We get Elijah Hicks, Trenton Gill, and Jalen Jones. So we got a lot out of the defensive back room out of this draft, but we're still drafting kickers. Trenton Gill. And then you double back and do it the year after the next, you draft another kicker. I mean, some of this stuff to me is just like blasphemous. This goes against the grain. I mean, who are these guys that they drafted? Outside of Kyler Gordon, Jaquan Brisker, you did nothing with 12 picks. Nothing. And the misses that you should have had, Abraham Lucas, Nick Pettit-Frerer, George Pickens, Alec Pierce. This is just the beginning. This is when it's all beginning, and before we even play a game, I could clearly see that Ryan Poles is not setting up the team for success. Not for the year 2022. No. In addition to some of the big moves that he made, he just lacked the experience and the conversation to, retain some of these veterans that might have took less money to stay with the Chicago Bears who wanted to retire with the Bears. You could have stayed a relatively mediocre to a winning team had you still solidified some pieces on that defense. Ryan Poles came to the Chicago Bears with the mind state that I got a clean house. I don't want any of the players. We're cleaning up the mess that Ryan Pace made. And he had no second thought about cutting guys that were actually good locker room guys. He didn't have any second thought about cutting guys that could have brought along some of your younger players on defense and offense. So when I judge Ryan Poles, I look at some of the moves, I look at the experience and the lack thereof, and some of the deficits in scouting talent, just rolled all in one ball. And so we give him the first year as a mulligan. But I'm looking at it like, if I got 12 draft picks, I better do more. I better have the right guys. I better bounce this off the wall with some experienced people that I know the game and could look at some tape and are not just looking at the measurables. See, Ryan Poles is the type of guy that prefers traits over the tape. That's just that. But stay tuned for part 2. We're going to go a little bit deeper. We're going to talk about the second season. We're going to talk about David Montgomery leaving the Chicago Bears and saying that he wants to go to Detroit, a team that's trying to win.
It was what it was. And I'm like, all right. So I had to reassess myself. And then it came down to Chicago and Detroit. And you could just tell Detroit wanted me to be here in Detroit more than Chicago did. And I get it. I understand it was a business and, but to feel like wanted in the place and coming into a great situation, like I knew it was the right decision for me, and I'm happy to be here, really.
How big of a slap in the face was that for Chicago Bears fans? And where do you think he got that idea from? Ryan Poles. Where do you think Roquan Smith got the idea from not wanting to be a Bear? Working and negotiating with Ryan Poles and watching the mess that has been created around you. So stay tuned for the next episode where we break down the character, the chops that Ryan Poles is lacking to be an exceptional general manager for our franchise.